Hello, everyone. Charles Watts here. Welcome back to Inside Arsenal for this week's Inside Arsenal Extra Time. Where, as you can see, as always, I'm joined by James Benge for another episode. James, how you getting on, mate? How's silly season treating you in these early days of it?
At last, like a moment of peace and quiet, I feel like for Arsenal and even most of the Premier League, like nothing's burst into life. We get to think, we get to talk, we kind of have a sense of where Arsenal and the other big clubs are at. And I know people are very panicky. I think we're at the stage where there's no better way to farm retweets and engagement than to complain about Arsenal being linked to or tracking. And when are we going to put in bids? But yeah, it's all nice and sedate, and I think that's okay.
You clearly haven't been looking at social media very much then, if you're saying it's very nice and sedate. I feel like it's a complete opposite, I have to say. It doesn't feel nice and sedate to me. It feels like people are definitely in that panic mode that you were talking about.
Pre-season training doesn't start for weeks.
I know, but the transfer window is open, and people are beginning to do a few deals. Literally, as we started to record this, I just saw a tweet about Victor Gyökeres being open to Manchester United even without Champions League football, which I'm sure is going to go down very, very well on some of the Arsenal timelines. But we'll talk about transfers at the start of the show. We're going to do our end of season awards, as we said last week. So we'll go through some of our best moments, our worst moments, goal of the season, all that sort of stuff as well. We've got a few questions at the end, so plenty to get stuck into. But yeah, before we sort of move into the awards bit, which is always fun, and I had lots of people asking us to do it again, so I'm looking forward to getting stuck into that. But we are in the transfer window, as we said, and it is quiet from an Arsenal point of view at the moment, really, certainly in terms of what the club are actually doing or doing publicly. But there is movement. There's quite a bit of movement, actually. Are you surprised at just how many deals seem to be happening early doors? We've seen City today. Nori looks like that's done and dusted now. That'll be done before the Club World Cup. They've already brought in who was the other guy they brought in? Reinders, yeah. Man United are being busy, as I said, linked with Gyökeres there. Already sort of made a move for Mbuemo, got Kuna in already. So are you surprised at the level of early business that's happened in this window so far?
I mean, obviously Chelsea and City kind of exist in a different sphere there because they've kind of got to go and earn their Club World Cup money.
Yeah.
So them, not at all. Liverpool quietly impressed. And actually, I think it has to be said, you and I will remember this. One of the great things about Sir Alex Ferguson's Man United teams is how they had that ability, not quite at a Bayern Munich level, but they could go in and they could see a burgeoning team, a Leeds United, a Tottenham, the teams that might one day become their rivals, and they could go and snatch the best talents from them. And it's really impressive for me to see Man United doing the exact same with Wolverhampton Wanderers and Brentford and the teams that are on their level. And Sven, we got our eyes on you, 16th place Wolverhampton Wanderers. We're having your best player. Brentford in 11th, we're going to take yours. We're going to be fighting for you guys, with you guys, for a top 10 finish next season. I would say if Manchester United want Mateus Cunha in particular, be my guest. I'm not too worried about what they're doing. Like, I think he's a good player, and I think he'll make Manchester United better. And everyone wants like a really good third choice striker at Arsenal or a third choice forward. I could see Cunha fitting into that role, but sort of not. Yeah, they're shopping in Waitrose. I think Arsenal are sort of Fortnum and Mason or Harrods Food Court is where they need to be looking.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, but then when you look at the players at Arsenal, we think are really targeting. I'm not sure they would fall into that category. When you look at, would a Sesko be in that sort of category? I mean, you're talking about a proven Premier League goal scorer there for getting Mbuemo, proven Premier League goal scorer there. You're adding kind of 40 Premier League goals or 35 Premier League goals.
20 Premier League XG as well.
Yeah, but still, that take XG out of it. That is the players who have shown they can score at this level. Players at Arsenal signing or trying to sign potentially don't. So I've been quietly impressed with Man United's business. I have to say, I think if they got Mbuemo, I was not expecting that to happen. I really thought he'd end up at Newcastle. I was convinced that had Newcastle written all over it. I didn't expect United to be able to go in and get him. I think it does say a lot about United. The pool is still there. It is Man United, and obviously the wages are going to be massive for them to get those deals over the line. But they're adding goals to their attack. There's no doubt about that. So I think it's quite impressive early work from United.
I don't think it I don't think a front line of Mbuemo, Cunha, and a new striker really troubles the. I mean, obviously, it always would depend on the rest of the team, but I don't think it troubles the Champions League places.
No, I'm not expecting that to really challenge the teams at the top of the tree at the Premier League at the moment, like your Arsenals, your Cities, your Liverpools. I still think United have got a way to go, but I think it's a decent enough start for them. Right, let's talk about Arsenal. What's the date? 5th of June.
June the
So
5th.
5th of June. I'm a little bit surprised. I've spoken about this on my regular show. I'm a little bit surprised at where Arsenal are, even at this very early stage of the window. I thought we might have seen more intent of going out early doors and getting the guy they really, really want in attack. I thought that was going to be a very strong project. Look, and we are really early, like I said, 5th of June. I mean, that is ridiculously early. But it just felt to me that they'd have put so much work in since January, since last summer, really, in terms of who they really wanted, and that all the dossiers would have been completed, all the analysis would have been done. I figured they would definitely have a name at this point of he's the guy, we're going to go for him. It doesn't appear that is the case yet. It's still, from people you talk to, from other journalists who are very, very hot on it, it certainly appears that they're still mulling over, they're still getting everything in order to see what everyone costs, who's going to have to pay what, and then they're going to make a decision. So I'm slightly surprised we haven't seen an Arsenal attack this window with a little more intent that we've seen so far. Certainly that's what's out there publicly. Are you still, I mean, you say sedate and you're calm and everything like that. Is that you're still more in that sort of boat, are you, at the moment?
Oh yeah, I'm like 2-3 weeks away from panicking because I think obviously the minute you get to pre-season training, there's real value in having your players through the door.
Yeah.
Before then, if they're just going to be on holiday, it's nice to sort of have it and to really have a sense of what your budget is, what you can invest. All those things are nice to have. But if you told me as well that Arsenal kind of were just taking their time, assessing everything, assessing the broader lay of the land, because I think we have to remember as well that if Arsenal go for Sesko at this price, it's the sort of decision tree, isn't it, of that affords X amount for the left winger or the other forward, and the same, and understanding then, right, what can we get for that? If we go for Gyökeres at a lower price, what can we turn that into? And of course, it's important to say, like, Zubimendi is really only, the medical and the final documents being faxed over away from being done. So that one will be done in time for Zubimendi to join up with pre-season. So, no, I'm not worried at all. I'm sure someone will shout at me in the comments about that, but sorry.
Always going to get people shouting at you. I put out a tweet just before we started this, and it was really funny. It cracked me up. It was about the player of the season vote. Bukayo Saka just got number 2. And I just put out a tweet, perfectly normal tweet. It's going, each to their own, of course, personal opinion. I'm surprised Saka is in the top 3. This means that either Gabriel or Timber or both, if Rice wins it, aren't going to be in the top 3. And I'm just surprised at that. And honestly, some of the replies to that, like pure anger, like I'd literally just said that I'd killed someone. It's just like just a normal tweet about player of the season. So how are people so angry? It's mad.
If you think that's bad, I've really had a come to Jesus moment about writing about the Ballon d'Or. I think people, especially people with sort of more of my data inclination, should do it more. I don't think there's any shame in having a big conversation about who's been the best player in the world this season. And so I wrote about it, and the guys on our CBS Sports Galazzo account shared that and shared my rankings, which is great because it gets people talking. However, unleashing the tidal wave of Liverpool, PSG, Real Madrid, Barcelona fans on you in one go, because the Barcelona fans hate that I picked Lamine Yamal 6th. The PSG fans hate that I put Dembele 3rd. The Barcelona fans don't give me no praise for putting Rafinha 2nd. And I'm not even seeing the Liverpool fans giving me love for putting Salah 1st. So, yeah, I mean, when I say I've not seen much on social media, there's a reason why. I've had to sort of lock it in a safe and throw it in the bottom of the garden and hope never to see my phone again until people have stopped talking about my Ballon d'Or rankings.
It'll be safe to come out in about a week or so.
Yeah,
right. One let me just bring this up. this is an interesting one. Gary has written today that Morgan Rogers and Igor Paizo, I think it is, been added to the list of attacking options. Morgan Rogers is an interesting one. He's someone I've spoken about before. I remember on the Arsenal Press Pass show, myself, Sam, and Si were talking about it a couple of weeks back. Sort of signings we would make. And I remember Si was really pushing for Morgan Rogers, saying that he's a really talented player, and he is. I think he's fantastic, Morgan Rogers. Where would you see if Arsenal were to go for a player like Morgan Rogers? And I think Morgan Gibbs-White falls into this as well, because it's a similar sort of player in terms of how he plays, I think. And I really rate Morgan Gibbs-White, and the fact he's not ending up at Manchester City, or doesn't appear to be ending up at Manchester City now, has sort of perked my interest up in him a little bit. But then these two sort of fit into the same category of, as good of players as they are, where would they fit at Arsenal? I mean, Rodgers especially. Is he?
He's a second striker, really, isn't he?
He's more. That's it. He's not really a left eight creative player, really, is he? And he's not a left winger either. So it's like, where would that fit? Where would he fit in this team? I don't really, sort of thinking about it, I don't really see a spot for him in this Arsenal team, unless Arteta's thinking of changing systems and all that sort of stuff.
I mean, if assuming the system wasn't changed, and I'm Arteta, and you've handed me Morgan Rogers, I suppose left wing.
That just doesn't. That feels like square peg round holes to me, doesn't it?
It does. I mean, weird one would be: do you think he, because of all the physical attributes of him and his ball carrying, could he be a centre forward that plays as more of a false nine and that comes to the ball and carries it? I mean, the one thing I would say about this is, we know that Villa, probably of the top half Premier League clubs, are the team that's going to be in the most PSR stress. So if, like, on June the 30th, June the 29th, they need money, I think as a sort of talent play, if you can get Morgan Rogers at a really good price, well, off mic we said 80 million is sort of what Villa should be looking for. I think if he came down quite a bit on that, I'm thinking came down in price by tens of millions, maybe you just do that because you think it's a really good market opportunity and those are worth trying for. It would be a challenge. It would be an enjoyable challenge for a coach like Mikel Arteta, I think, but it doesn't feel natural. It doesn't feel like a plug and play option. Maybe striker, maybe left wing, maybe. Yeah, he doesn't fit in any spot.
No, there's just a lot of maybes there, isn't there? It's not a come in a plug and play type thing, is it? It's a sort of bit of a conundrum of how you get him into the team and how it works. As much as I really like him, that Paiso's an interesting player. I was watching some of his goals, once he pops up, and people have mentioned him to me before in like the comments saying, why aren't we going for this guy, the goals he scored last season and stuff like that. I mean, he does look like an exciting player, obviously playing in a league of far lower standards than the Premier League, but certainly got an ability to shoot from distance and do the unexpected, which is the sort of thing that Arsenal need, to be honest. Whether it's him or not, I don't know. But Rodgers is an interesting one for me. I still think if Arsenal were going to go and cherry pick Aston Villa because of a sort of PSR loophole, I still feel like Ollie Watkins is the most likely one of the lot, because that's what you can see Ollie Watkins coming in and playing into the Arsenal team. I'm sure they'd find a place for Rodgers, but it feels like a lot of money on a player where I just don't know where he fits or how he fits. Because look, Declan Rice is going to play next season, isn't he? There's no way Declan Rice isn't starting games for Arsenal next season. It's the only place you could see it is left wing, really. I think, and I'm just not sure he's that guy in this system for Arsenal. But we shall wait and see. Everyone in the comments below, give me your thoughts on Morgan Rogers and this latest link from Gary over in the Times. Whether you think that would be a good deal, where he could feature in this Arsenal team, how you'd see that lining up. What did you make of the stuff about the Greek kid today that's doing the rounds, reporting from Greece about it? I've been sort of trying to chase it since this morning, and I've not got to a position where I've sort of had it backed up at all yet. That's not to say that it's not the case, obviously. And this is coming from, I was speaking to Harry Simeo earlier on his show, and he's got some fairly close contacts over in Greece who in the sports journalists, and they were like, this has come from a very reputable source over here. Source is known for getting stuff right, but he was also told that the kid's father is very sort of prone to speaking to people and putting stuff out that doesn't always come to sort of fruition. So they were saying, so be a little bit wary of that. And yeah, I mean, I've asked a few questions and I haven't had anything back yet to be able to firm it up. And what we a few hours after a big story like that, and none of the sort of Arsenal press pack have been able to firm it up either. So I'm a bit skeptical on it. £38 million on a 17-year-old, plays in the exact same position as Nwaneri and Dowman. Just a lot of red flags in that one for me. Again, that's not me saying it's not happening, but there are just a few red flags there for me on that one.
Yeah, I mean, again, I don't really know enough about this story, like, because it's how to put this in the delicate terms, like peeling back the curtain of journalism. I think sometimes sometimes it can be quite like invigorating when you see this sort of thing that comes entirely out of the blue and you do want to chase it down. But honestly, for me today, I've just been on Florian Wirtz's watch, so I didn't even like kind of give it much of the time of day, to be honest, just because it's so hard to believe a club as methodical as Arsenal. I mean, it has happened, and it's happened more and more in the last couple of years. Vieira, Matt Ryan, I think we were talking about those transfers last week. It's not unknown, but I just think that like for a £36 million bid, we might have at least heard a little bit of smoke before this blazing fire.
Yeah, that was the thing. It was just that they seemed to be they went so strong on it, so strong, like advanced talks, close to happening. That it certainly caught my eye a little bit, but I haven't been able to firm it up yet. So we shall see. We are in silly season. Looks like Arsenal are going to be appointing someone to come in and work with Andre Berta, the first of known names that Andre Berta looks like he's going to be adding to his team, that I'm sure he's going to be sort of building around himself over the next 12 months or so at Arsenal. Fabrizio tweeting that Matteo Tognozzi, who's former Juventus head of scouting, currently at Granada, I think, director, is in advanced talks to sign and be part of Andrea Berta's team. Interesting appointment. It's going to be interesting to see who else comes in and sort of joins up with Andrea Berta at Arsenal. When you sort of look at Tognozzi's sort of role when he was at Juventus and some of the players they signed, it seems they went down the sort of young route a little bit when he was there. There was Yildiz obviously came in. Dean Howson was signed, I think, during that time as well. Matthias Sol. So quite a few younger players have been brought in, which I think Arsenal probably do need to start adding more of those. And so I suppose when we're talking about Karesas, the Greek kid, maybe he would certainly fall into that category. So yeah, what do you make of this appointment?
Really like that, because he's clearly shown an eye for really good talent that maybe wasn't getting the hype before, like someone like Dean Howson. And very impressed with that. I think one of the challenges for Berta coming in, of course, losing Jason Ato, but having an operation below that level that I think has functioned really well since Edu sort of remolded the scouting department around COVID. I know it's a real challenge when you're the new man, because you want to put a stamp on things. You want to do things your way. We know that Berta is someone that really likes to collate as much information as possible. So that in theory may well mean he wants a bigger scouting team, but also not losing what's worked really well when you are an organization that's got its recruitment so right in the last 3-4 years. So I like this addition, just in terms of, I think sometimes the idea of like just having an eye for things can be overrated, and I don't think you want to, there's many voices and many cooks that go into this, but clearly he's had good success, and I know my colleagues out in Italy speak quite highly of him as well. So would be a fun little pickup.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what Berta does in terms of the sort of the size of his scouting and recruitment network. Because we know Edu came in and streamlined it so massively when he came in. It'll be interesting if Berta sort of sticks with that and just adds one or two, or if he sort of brings in a much wider network again and makes things a little bit bigger. Like you said, I mean, it's worked pretty well since Edu has changed things, and Arsenal's recruitment, by and large, there's been some mistakes, obviously, but by and large, has been good, which has helped the team, move up the Premier League table and Europe as well. So it'll be interesting to see what Berta does. But yeah, that's an interesting appointment. Right, we're going to move on now into our end of season awards for 2024-25. So let me get rid of that picture. And so obviously we did our player of the seasons the other day, so we're not going to do that again. Really surprised, by the way. Bukayo Saka got second. I'm really surprised. But so that's going to be announced. Like tomorrow, we'll know the official winner of Arsenal's Player of the Season. So we're not going to include that. We're going to go through a few different ones this season. So I'm going to start off, and we're going to start with goal of the season. So give me your Arsenal goal of the season for 2024-25.
I'm hoping we haven't picked the same one for this. So I went, of course, I feel like there's only two correct answers here, and they both took place within 12 minutes of each other. I went for Declan Rice's second free kick, purely for the sort of the post, the sort of post-match images where you could see it literally in that postage stamp. That was the one that couldn't be more top bins. I think I'm going to talk about this a little bit more, so I won't dive into it too much for once. I'll keep my answer brief. One of my personal favorite goals I've seen at the Emirates, and I loved it.
Okay, so yours is that. We don't have the same goal, because my goal is the first free kick, which I've got a lot of grief in over time for saying this is my favorite of the two free kicks, but I'm still sticking to it. I still think it was better. I think the second one was more spectacular. And I think obviously in the stadium with the noise and everything, not that I was in the stadium that night, but the fact it followed on so quickly from the first just made it even more unbelievable that it was the second. And like you said, it was very, very top corner. But I think from distance point of view, from the angle from behind Rice, when you saw just, it was Roberto Carlos, like the bend he got on it to beat a keeper like Courtois from that far out, to get it around the wall, to bend it around so perfectly. I think this was the better of the two personally. And so it is almost toss of the coin type stuff. But my goal of the season is...
I mean, there's no wrong answers as long as your answer is a Declan Rice free kick taken against
I think
Real
it kind of has to be one of the Declan Rice. There are other shouts. So I was thinking Ethan Nwaneri scored a few, some really nice goals. And I'm sure there's plenty others.
Well, there was one that briefly caused me pause to think.
What was that?
Which was Calafiori at the Etihad.
Oh, yeah. Calafiori. Yeah, his was a really good goal as well.
That one stayed hit.
Yes. Now, I'm sure there are others as well. I should have tried to sort of think a little bit more about some of the goals. But I think it had to be one of the Rice free kicks. It really did. Okay, so we've both gone Declan Rice with different free kicks. So win of the season.
Yeah, I think contentious one, this one as well.
Yeah.
I think beating Real Madrid 3-0 was quite good.
I think that has to be, doesn't it? There are other. I mean, look, we've been Manchester City 5-1 at the Emirates. You've gone to PSV and won 7-1 in the Champions League away from home. So there are some really impressive wins. Won 5-1 at Crystal Palace or 5-2, whatever the score was at the end there. But it's one of the most. It's probably the greatest night in Emirates history in 20 years. Going beating Real Madrid 3-0 to do it the way they did. It's got to be that, isn't it?
Well, can I ask? Does it now that we are out of the whole Champions League campaign, and now that that's decided, and it didn't lead to winning the Champions League, does the fact that Arsenal went out in the next round in any way tarnish or spoil it, or just like dull it a bit for you?
No, not at all. I mean, I wasn't there either, which it takes it away. But I even had one of the most special nights I've ever had, sort of watching football, watching it with Luke, my son, in a pub for the first ever time, and just seeing the utter joy on his face and how involved he got in it, and the fact that his favourite player is Declan Rice and he scored those two free kicks, and it was just a really special night. And it's the same as Reece Nelson's goal against Bournemouth. It's still my favourite ever goal, I think, in the Emirates that I think I've seen so far. And we didn't win the league that season; it didn't count for nothing in the end. But it's still that moment in injury time to come back from 2-0 to win 3-2, and the noise and the adrenaline buzz from that is still my favourite Emirates moment. And the same up, it's like there with Arshavin again. Didn't win anything that season. Went out in the second leg to Barcelona, but it's still up there. Football's about moment. It's about winning. Obviously, it's about trophies, but it's about individual moments that you'll never forget, that you celebrate with your mates, with your family, and everything like that. So no, it doesn't take the gloss.
I fully agree, and I was hoping you'd say that. Yeah, you're going to have a very disappointing time supporting all bar about 3-4 teams in the world if your moments only mean something because they end up in you winning a trophy.
I don't understand it. When I hear people say that, like, oh, it doesn't matter, didn't win it, didn't go on to win it, doesn't matter. I honestly feel sorry for people who feel that way when it comes to watching football. I don't know if it's because I'm getting older. If it's like, if you can't enjoy, you know what football's about, being with, it's about trophies and winning. Of course it is. Absolutely, of course it is. That's the ultimate goal. That's what you're all in it for. But it's also about just enjoying and being wrapped up in the moment, going out with your mates for 90 minutes and just forgetting about everything else and just getting so swept up in the moment that you're hugging someone who 2 seconds ago was about 10 meters to your right and about four rows in front of you, and then suddenly you're bundling over them, getting thrown over everyone else. That's what it's about. And so yeah, there's people who said they haven't enjoyed this season. It was a struggle this season. It was a grind. But there were some unbelievable moments that I wouldn't change at all. The Man City win, the Real Madrid win, you know, going to the Bernabeu and winning 2-0 and winning 2-1. Sorry, those magic moments. There were still great moments to enjoy in that I'll remember for the rest of my life from this season. So anyway, right. So we've done the win of the season, performance of the season. Then again, I've gone Madrid home, and this is dominating things at the moment. But you've gone different. I do have notable shouts for PSV away. PSG at home in the league format phase, when Arsenal won 2-0, and I thought they were excellent that
Man
night.
City at home.
Man City at home. Obviously, there was strong performances, but I fall back to winning 3-0. A moment like that, you know, it was a real coming of age moment almost for Arsenal. So yeah, Madrid at home for me. But you've got a different answer.
Well, I feel like 3 years in now, our viewers should know I sometimes like to be a bit contrarian. But actually, I mean, I do both sincerely think this, and I feel very comfortable defending it. Even though it ended in disappointment, actually, one of the moments where I've most, and the performance where I most admired Arsenal was away at the Etihad. Throughout the whole game, and especially in that second half, given that was not the City, the weakened City that got blew away at the Emirates. That was City still believing in themselves, still with the best striker in the world. Yeah, Rodri went out before the game was done, but you know they were throwing everything at Arsenal, and for best part of an hour, down to 10 men, Arsenal actually did an incredible job of not just sort of blocking every shot, but for a large part of the game, holding City at arm's length. And yeah, I mean, it absolutely was horrible that John Stones got the goal at the last minute. But I think, I mean, you know, every game we mentioned at the top there, you could maybe say it's a more complete team performance. But I think in terms of like what I've really admired about Arsenal this season is the character, the ability to keep going in trying circumstances. And so for me, like nothing explains that better than how they came away from the Etihad, a place where they routinely got thumped and spent most of the game a man down and still got a point and deserved to win, 100% deserved to win. So yeah, I don't think I'm just being difficult and contrarian there. I think I do genuinely believe that.
Yeah, well, not going to argue. Not going to argue with that. Just got to reject a phone call there from my estate agent, who's going to hate me for that, because we're right. We're getting very, very close to. We're getting very, very close to exchanging now. Okay, so we've done performance of the season, moment of the season. Now, again, I think we're very much in agreement over this.
Specifically, Declan Rice standing over the second free kick. I'm sure this was the same in the pub you were watching it at, but you know, I was quite lucky actually. Normally, I don't like this, but being at the front row of the Emirates press box meant you could really hear the fans, and I have to assume it was the case for the other 59,800, whatever, all going, yeah, you should probably, if I were him, I'd probably put this one top bins again. And just that moment, then running into the sort of brief sort of, did he just do what we think he just did? And the ecstasy of that, yeah, it's that moment, that's Emirates history for me. That was a joy, thrill to cover. There's nothing better than when you can't quite believe what your eyes are telling you.
Yeah. I have actually gone for something different. I was just looking at what I've written down, and I've got Rice's second free kick, but I've gone just behind this, and it was Gabriel Martinelli's goal at the Bernabeu to win it over there. It was my first time at the Bernabeu. I dreamt of going over there and watching Arsenal. I wasn't there in 2006, and as much as the game was done and dusted at that point, I was really I had a real sense of disappointment that Arsenal hadn't won on the night, because I really felt like they deserved to win on the night. And, such a stupid goal to give away, because I thought Saka's goals, that I loved that moment as well, especially after missing the penalty, to then step up and do what he did and chip the keeper in the second half. I loved that. But then there was just that sense of disappointment. Oh, we should have won this game rather than drawing it. So to see him run off like that, just running, and like everything seemed to go in slow motion as he was going, and he's just waiting for him to finish, and then he did, and just this sort of the release of everything there, of everyone running on, celebrating, the away fans who were just to my right, who were amazing all night. It was seeing Arsenal win in the Bernabeu, and to beat Real Madrid and absolutely batter them over two legs, and just top it off with a goal to win it in the last minute. I just thought it was, again, that's a moment that I'll never forget. So Gabriel Martinelli in the Bernabeu wins that one for me. Okay, we're going on to some ones that we don't enjoy so much now. So the disappointment of the season. What have you gone for that?
I thought this was quite straightforward. Second leg of the EFL Cup against in the semi-final against Newcastle. One of the few games this season where I've just felt like Arsenal, very few games this season where I felt like Arsenal didn't seem up for the fight. Doesn't help when that fight is against Alexander Isak, who I think is the one striker out there that kind of really does inspire a bit of fear in this back line. It felt a bit limp. I think kind of it felt like blow after blow, like losing Kai Havertz, losing Gabriel Martinelli in that game as well. Not necessarily the build-up hadn't necessarily been perfectly managed by Mikel Arteta. It felt like the players were being run into the ground. And, I didn't pick the home leg because that one, you sort of looked at it and you thought Arsenal played quite well here and the ball didn't go in the net and Isak scored. And that happens. I thought in the second one, they just came out with so little fight. I suspect if you ask Mikel Arteta, honestly, when he was sort of most disappointed, I think that would be right up there. Not the worst performance, which I know we're going to come on to, but certainly the one where I was like, oh, I thought you were going to be better than this.
Yeah, no, that was a disappointment one. Martin Odegaard's chance at 0-0 when he hit the post. I think had that gone in, it might have been a sliding doors moment. But other than that, Arsenal were absolutely battered by Newcastle that day. So I agree. I've gone to a slightly different one.
Yeah.
Not so much the Tifo, which obviously was a big disappointment anyway. But you talk, and I did laugh when you said limp in in your description of the Newcastle game, because I immediately thought of this. But just that first leg, or the first half against PSG, or the whole build up. I mean, we were together in the early stages of that day. We went out for sort of an early dinner with us and some mates and had a few beers, and then I carried on. You were professional, went to work. I carried on having a few more beers, and just the whole day was amazing. The atmosphere, the build up, this inside the stadium in the concourse for an hour, building up to the sort of the kickoff. It was just a really, really special day. And then just for everything to go as flat as it did for that first half hour, and I would do anything to be able to play that first half hour again of that game, because I just really think, having watched the final afterwards, and I know Inter beat us earlier on in the season, but even so, I think if Arsenal had reached that final, they win that game against Inter Milan in the final. I'm absolutely 95% convinced Arsenal win that final. And I would just love to go back and replay the start of this game against PSG, because I think it showed in the second game in Paris that it was a very, very close affair, and there wasn't much that separated the sides. And even in this first game, there wasn't that much that separated the sides after Arsenal got sort of sorted themselves out after that first half an hour. So yeah, I think my biggest disappointment is just that first half hour of the PSG semi-final. It could have just been very, very different. So
that hurt a lot.
Yes, that did. I was devastated leaving the stadium that night, because I kind of knew as well. You knew, it was never done and dusted, but you deep down you knew it was a long shot, a long way back after that. So that was a disappointment. Worst performances. Worst performance. We're both in agreement on this one.
Yeah, I don't know about you. When you were going through, I didn't find a load that I was like, that was really, really bad.
Everton at home before Christmas, wasn't it? The 0-0. That was a bad one, like really bad, I thought.
And I think that
Arsenal had chances still in that game. I remember Odegaard had a few and stuff, but the one that we've both picked, I think, it's the definite worst performance of the season for me.
diabolical when they lost at home to West Ham. Really, really poor. Mitigating factors were, of course, the numerous injuries right across that team. I was looking back at it, and I mean, it's front three of Nwaneri, Trossard, and Marino.
Yeah.
And, that was early as Mikel Marino was still learning his role.
It was a game immediately after Leicester,
After
wasn't it?
Leicester.
When he
And
scored the two.
we all knew it was
It
going
was
to
his
be.
first start in that position.
And all the way through that, we knew this is going to be really hard. And what Arsenal are going to need to do is outwork the opposition and not give up on any second balls and not lose their jewels, because they really can't rely on having strikers and forwards that can create something out of nothing. And yeah, it was a game where they didn't outwork, they didn't outrun. They got out tacticked. They didn't really manage to exploit the qualities of any of their players. That was not just the worst performance of this season. I think you could make a case for one of the worst of the last three.
Yeah,
off the top of my head. Yeah,
it was really bad.
bad.
That was disappointing as well. That was the day that me and my brother had taken my dad. We're in club level. It's for his 80th birthday, a big surprise. And so I wanted to win. I mean, I always wanted to win, but I wanted to win even more because, it was a great day. And it was a shame the result didn't sort of match the day that we had. But yeah, undoubtedly worst performance for me. Just never, ever looked like scoring. Like you said, sort of defensively all over the place as well. Quite fortunate it was 1-0, to be honest. West Ham could have won that by more. So yeah, I think that was a relatively easy one to pick. So after worst performance, most painful moment of the season.
Which hamstring injury did you go for? Yeah, I think we knew that the Premier League was parked at this stage, but someone remind me, that Gabby injury is right before the Champions League quarter final.
Before Madrid, yeah.
Before Madrid. And it has to be said, and I'll come on to talk about him shortly, and I'm sure you will want to say too about Jakub Kiwior. But I think with Gabby in the team, Gabby, Saliba, that back line and the quality of the defence, I still believe there was a chance to win the Champions League. And I kind of agree with Mikel Arteta. I think he had a point. This was at the very least one of the best teams, and that they could run. I thought you can defend your way to the Champions League title with Gabriel and Saliba. And while it turned out you might have been able to do that with Kiwior, it for me felt like the moment that the Champions League final went up. The Champions League went up in smoke as well as the Premier League. The fact that it was, your player of the season, and understandably so, someone that had sort of typified everything Arsenal had got right, the fighting spirit of this season that I spoke about earlier. If anyone deserved to make it through this season unharmed, it was Gabby. And yeah, he's one of the most admirable players in this team. So I think that's why I wanted to sort of in this one just to reflect on like where I felt the most like, oh man, rather than like a goal that just felt rubbish against Arsenal. I felt pain for Gabby in that moment, although I'm sure not as much as he did.
No,
yeah,
you could see everyone around me in the stadium. There was for the next 10 minutes after he'd gone off with this injury, no one was even paying attention on what was happening on the pitch. Everyone was just still talking about Gabriel and how disappointing and how much it could have meant for the Madrid games. Because at that point, I think we all thought, oh, Madrid, that's game over against Madrid. But like you said, Kiwior stepped up and did well. So yeah, I understand your shout. I mean, Saka's injury against Palace as well. I remember vividly, that was when I was in Lapland just before Christmas. It was on my birthday. It was on my birthday actually. And I was reading it on my phone, and there was an Arsenal fan next to me, a dad of another kid who was on our trip. And I was talking to him, and I was just like, Saka's like properly done his hamstring. They're talking about months. And I knew at that point there was no chance Arsenal win the title at that point. So that was disappointing. I've still gone PSG at home again for my most painful moment. Again, I was just so gutted at that leaving the stadium, to get to the semi-final, to be so close again, and to kind of have that disappointment, very similar to the United semi-final, of it almost being done and dusted after 5 minutes.
Yeah,
it was. I was just, I was crestfallen after that. So I can understand your pick, but PSG at home was for me. Right, we're moving on now to surprise package of the season.
Easy. Arsenal inadvertently discovering a superstar left back in an academy central midfielder. And I know we'd had like the little hints in pre-season, hadn't we? He played quite a lot of his minutes in pre-season at left back, but I've seen enough Jeff Wren Adelaides and enough players like that to know you kind of what happens in preseason often stays in preseason. And I still remember even at the Etihad when Lewis Skelly was on a huge wind-up task and was getting his booking. And I remember tweeting out, Miles Lewis Skelly has been booked potentially months before his Premier League debut. And he was on in that game. And within a few months, he was one of the better left backs in England. Rightly earned his call up for Thomas Tuchel. I was talking about this with Andrew on the Arscast as well about, Miles Lewis Skelly might just be the perfect left back for Mikel Arteta, he was saying. And that's come completely as a bolt to the blue for me, from the blue to me as well. What a joy it's been.
I remember us speaking at some point halfway through the season, the first half of the season, and we were talking about Lewis Skelly going out on loan because we were like, well, the cup competitions, the early rounds of the Carabao Cup are going to be over. The early, the Champions League knockout phase is going to be the league phase is going to be over. Probably makes sense to send him out on loan for the second half season because I can't see where his minutes are going to come from. And that was this season we were saying it, and now he's first choice left back. England's probably first choice left back, and just an absolute star already, and has gone to bossing Real Madrid home and away in the Champions League quarterfinals. I think it's just it's an amazing story. There's no other answer for a surprise package of the season. I think we all would have said at the start of the season, sort of breakout star, surprise package, Ethan Van Aery, and none of us would have said Miles Lewis Skelly, or very, very few would have said Miles Lewis Skelly. So.
I mean, when you see what Ethan's done this season as well,
I know he's got 9 goals this season. He's one of Arsenal's top goal scorers, but it still has to be Lewis Skelly for what he's done. It's just been remarkable, and the way he's done it, the personality he's shown, the character he's shown, the fearlessness he shows. It's got to be Lewis Skelly for me. Right, 2 more.
I just want to say,
yeah.
My tribute to Miles was the last bit of it. Mate, I hope I haven't said this before. I haven't bought an Arsenal shirt in forever, and I certainly haven't put a player's number on the back of it in even longer. I think that's probably like a function of being let down by so many people that you thought were your heroes in the 2010s. I got myself a Miles Lewis Skelly number 49 shirt, and I don't think I'm going to regret that. And I think I'm going to get kudos. When he's going to wear, I don't know, 3, 16, whatever number he wears, people are going to see me walking down the Holloway Road in that Lewis Skelly 49, and they're going to go, he was on it. He was ahead of the curve.
When you said I'm going to get Kudus, I thought you were talking about Mohamed Kudus. Then I thought you were
bring him in as well.
They're going to sign him. I hope he doesn't change 49. And I know he didn't. He deliberately didn't change 49 this summer, and so I really hope he sticks with that. I think
is that right? I sort of assumed it might be something like one of the players that was leaving. He might look to take their number.
No. He's definitely not changing it this season. He kept it. He had the chance to change it, but he kept 49 because he knew what that number represented for Arsenal. So I'm very happy he's sticking with that. Now, whether he does it long term, who knows? But he's got his own song with the number 49 in it as well. So it's like, why would you change it? It doesn't make any sense. And there's no more special number than 49 when it comes to Arsenal. Really, it's in history. So we've both gone with that. What's the last one? No, 2 more. Most improved. You want to talk about Jakub Kiwior here, don't you?
Wonderful. Came in such trying circumstances with so many the sort of headlines he never generates, and not only that, even people that were high on Jakub Kiwior's talent, and I think we probably would both fall into that category. We were saying things like, "Yeah, he's a good defender, but he's coming in from the cold completely. We don't think he can do this." And that was the sort of optimistic view on Jakub Kiwior. Was there's not enough time to get him ready? Didn't need it, mate. Fantastic. He now looks like a player that is going to require minutes. Time is going to have to be made for Jakub Kiwior to play if he stays at Arsenal. And I wouldn't entirely discount the possibility that an Italian team or another team looks at him and goes, "We got to have him. He's really good." I think he just because of the context in which he came in, I think for me, he's the most improved player in an Arsenal team where maybe not that many players came on leaps and bounds. I don't know who you're going for here.
I've gone for Mikel Merino. I just think what he did over the second half of the season in such difficult circumstances was so impressive to score the amount of goals he did, to lead the line the way he did. And Yeah, had a really difficult start to life at Arsenal first half season. First training session, you break your shoulder when Gabriel lands on you. You miss the first few months, couple of months of the season because of that. And then you sort of come into the team sort of searching around a little bit for form and for fitness and all that. And there was a lot of question marks over him at that point. A lot of people looking at that and thinking this is a failed piece of transfer business. And to do what he did in the second half of the season in a role that he'd never played before, I think he deserves a lot of credit. So I would absolutely not contest Jakub Kiwior either. I think what he did when he came into that team was great, but I've given it to Kiwior, I thought. But I think both are very good shouts on that. And the final one is the funniest moment of the season. So,
and let's be frank, my funniest moment is vying with Declan Rice's second free kick for moment of the season. Is Erling Haaland going to the moon and back at the Etihad? I mean, is the joy of it is that sort of story in two acts. Is sort of like if Shakespeare wrote it, it'd be Erling Haaland part 1 and part 2, absolutely losing it. Very like people forget there's so many little sub passages of the first time he lost it, like moments. There was about a minute after John Stones' goal, there was time for City to turn it around. And if you're sort of picking a team and an attack and an occasion, like when Arsenal have held on for 98 minutes, there's a chance that they might wobble when they've just conceded. And Erling Haaland goes charging into, was it Gabriel? I want to say.
Yeah, I think it was.
It gives Arsenal the free kick that means they get out of the Etihad with a point. And then the Lewis Skelly, and then the Arteta. And I think if you're going to do that, you really then need to make sure the next time you run into Arsenal, you are at your best and you make sure that Man City win at the Etihad. And I whatever you think of Man City, it was relentlessly funny how kind of everything about that as well. Like, we don't celebrate draws, and a few months later they're celebrating draws. We'll see how it goes next time. And a few months later, they're losing 5-1 at the Emirates. So, yeah, the great Erling Haaland experience this season has been a joy. And I can't wait to see his next visit to the Emirates for sure.
Yeah. Well, mine kind of ties into that. It's not Haaland losing his head. It's kind of it's the response to it. Miles Lewis-Skelly's celebration in the 5-1. As you said, the sort of relentless piss-taking of Haaland in the crowd of that game. The way, and especially just before, he'd scored the equaliser right in front of me where I was sitting, and was giving it just a sort of look of like, shut up, everyone. And then within a few minutes, it was 2-1, then 3-1, then 4-1, then 5-1, and just the chance going out. But the fact that, the kid that during his meltdown at the Etihad, he'd said, who are you? And then he goes and scores. The kid scores and does the Haaland celebration. And the first time I saw it on the big screen, it was just like, just everyone around us was like, oh my god, he's done the Haaland. It was just so bloody funny. And so that second half, the goals flying in, but Miles Lewis-Skelly doing that, and then even the reaction to it, I just thought this is so ridiculously bloody pathetic and funny. So that is my funniest moment of the season. And that wraps up the 2024-25 Inside Arsenal Extra Time end of season awards. I hope you've all enjoyed that, everyone who's listening or watching. We will end with a few questions now before we wrap this one up. So let me bring them up. So got a few here on the Inside Arsenal Discord for members. We've got one from Carl, one from Aurora Freak, one from Martine. So we'll start with Carl. It says, hi both. Will the rule change involving ownership loans affect us getting the big deals over the line like we did with Declan Rice? A lot of reports suggest we may need to get 2 forwards in, which makes me think we have an issue with the amount of upfront cash we have available. A lot of reports suggest we may need to sell to get 2 forwards in, which makes me think we might have an issue with the amount of upfront cash we have available. Now, we need to be really ambitious in this window to keep up with the competition, in my opinion. Will the change in ownership? I mean, Arsenal have certainly utilised the ownership loans a lot, which is why Man City have complained so much about it. I don't think it will have too much. I look at the ownership loans and where a lot of that was used, and it was more during COVID time. Yeah, and obviously we're not in that situation now, and Arsenal making record revenues now, did last season, expect they will again next season because of what they did in the Champions League this season. So I don't think they're going to be in the position when they need ownership loans, when that was during COVID times when they really needed that, and they had like the party deal where you had to pay up front to Spain and all that sort of stuff for it. So no, I don't think I don't think it's going to impact Arsenal. I have to say, I think the money is coming in from all revenue streams at the moment very, very healthily. So, no. Agree with that?
Yeah, spot on. You've said everything that needs saying there.
Cool. Okay, so Martine says, "Hi guys, I was wondering if you didn't have to be involved for it in your jobs, would you still be so involved in the transfer window anyway? I find it so tiring most of the time, but for me it's easier to shut it out than you guys, I assume." Bit of a random question, but it just popped into my head.
Martine, I'm completely with you. I would basically check out. Do you know the funny thing is, and it was sort of even true as we were coming into this industry, wasn't it, mate? Is if some football journalists would kind of get to go and do other things in the summer, like you might go and help out at Wimbledon for the 2 months of that. You might maybe do a bit of cricket. I'm not aware of any like people in our position that get to do that now. Honestly, the transfer window is all encompassing. I personally find like I work longer and much more antisocial hours, and I'm not even like big on the reporting front, like your Ornsteins or Fabrizios or Sammys, those guys. I don't like it. I think its importance is massively outweighed. But the reality is we all do it because we all have access to Google Analytics. And I mean, Charles, I'm sure you won't mind us saying that the big time for Inside Arsenal extra time is not generally when the games are happening. It's when the transfers are happening.
No, it's exactly that. It's exactly that's where the interest, you get more interest in transfer window times. You look at the views on just the Arsenal videos that I do, the views in transfer window times shoot up compared to they do in normal times. It does feel like there's more interest or more fevered interest in transfers than the actual football, which does, absolutely surprises me. I would like to say I wouldn't still be so involved, but I remember before I was doing this and I was just a fan, and I remember being absolutely all consumed by the transfer window, who Arsenal were going to sign. And this was like the early days of Twitter when I was still a sports reporter. But say when I worked at the Maynard Advertiser as deputy sports editor, and I remember I had 2 screens. Then I was doing all the subbing, I was designing all the pages, ringing up managers, writing it all onto the screen. But my second screen was just Twitter. And I just remember it constantly just being open to see what was going on with Arsenal, who they were going to sign and stuff like that. So I've always, I'd like to say I would shut myself off from it if I wasn't a reporter and I was just a fan now. But I get why people get so into it, because you want your side to spend big and all that sort of stuff. I think the fact that I'm also 43 now and I've got 2 kids chased around, they wouldn't allow me to be able to be as involved in it. If it wasn't my job, my family wouldn't allow me to be as involved in it as I am. And I also, I hate how crazy it sends people, and that's the thing as well. Like, just the crapness you have to deal with on social media. And I know a lot of people in the comments, whenever I talk about sort of social media, they're like, you've got to just ignore it. And it's kind of easy to say that, but it's, when you can't ignore it because you're constantly having to be on it and making sure you don't miss anything. And then if you do miss stuff, you got to react to it, all that sort of stuff. So it's very hard to ignore it. And so, yeah, I think how crazy it sends people, I would like to be able to take far more of a sort of step back to not have to deal with that, obviously. But yeah, it does come with the territory, I suppose.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think it's sometimes understandable when people go a bit mad about the actual results, because that's supposed to be why we're here. It's when people get furious at you about transfers you say might happen, might not happen. I'm like, but mate, there's like so many more players out there. Like, certainly at this stage of the summer, there's no Colo Toure meme. There is no need to panic.
Okay, Aurora Freak now says, another question from my side for the extra time pod. I really don't understand all this fuss about we have to get a player now in this week or so. All the players will be on holiday until probably July, and our training camp won't start before that. We aren't really in a hurry. If there are any other options for our targets, if there aren't any other options for our targets, sorry. For example, if Sesko wants to join us, we have enough time to negotiate with Leipzig about it, as there isn't any competition, and he is with the national team now. We aren't in the Club World Cup. Why do you think there is such a big worry about our transfer summer now, even though it's just started some days ago? Or is it just social media? This kind of ties into what we were just talking about, doesn't it? I think people just get so swept up in it all when they see what other people are saying, and the anger just builds, and they see what other teams are doing. And some people just react to it more than others do. So it's impossible to say why do you think there is such a big worry about it, because it's really hard to answer that. I think it's people deal with things in different ways, I suppose.
Yeah. I mean, the only other thing I'd say, I'll just double check this. 25th of June last year, I broke the story that Arsenal had already started their pre-season training camp in Marbella. So, Aru, it's only 3 weeks until pre-season starts.
They're
so
doing
maybe
that
there
again.
is a rush.
They're doing that
Yeah,
again. They're again. It was interesting. Someone asked a question similar along the lines to this the other day and I looked it up. They were like, when the summer we signed Declan Rice, we've been working on that since January to make sure we're in a good position, and we got it done early. And I thought, did we get it done early? And I went and looked, and they signed him in July the 15th.
Yeah.
Which is still well over a month away. So, and I know they're in Conference League, and so you had to wait until they're after that. And then, but then, it was still July 15th that he actually signed. So it wasn't like that was actually done early. I think people you kind of forget as well. And that was a window that was viewed where Arsenal attacked it pretty strongly. Timber, Havertz, Rice, I think they were all in by Rice was the last of those three. But I do think by sort of July 15th, I'd be very, very surprised if Arsenal haven't done a significant amount of business at this stage of the season as well. I think we've got one more. This is on Karestas, actually. The Greek teenager says, "Hi, Charles and Benge. Karestas looks like a real superstar. I really like this signing if it goes through, especially loaning him back for the season. End of next season, Trossard could leave. Hoping that we sign a left winger already this summer. We could have Martinelli and a new winger on the left. Karestas, Dalman, Ethan can rotate with Saka and both the 8 roles in the team." I don't know if you can have 3 players of such a similar position in a squad together, which is why I've had these red flags over the links today with Karestas. I just think Ethan's is he 18 now? He is 18 now, Ethan, isn't he?
Just, isn't it?
Yeah, I think he's just turned 18. Karestas is 17. Dalman's 15, going to be 16 at some point before the end of the year. So you've basically got 16-year-old, 17-year-old, 18-year-old playing it in the exact same position in a squad where you already have Bukayo Saka, Martin Odegaard. I just feel like that's one too many. I really do, especially 3 of the profile and age that are so similar. And if you're going to be spending 30 odd plus million on one of them, it's just, you want the best players, obviously, and it's exciting to sign good young players. But I still feel that's, I don't know, it just doesn't feel like the greatest squad building idea I've ever heard of in my life.
Especially not when you're in Arsenal's position. Like, I don't really want Arsenal to be sort of, although I wouldn't criticize them fully for it, I would much rather Arsenal are spending 35 million now, given the position they're in someone that can make a meaningful impact to them winning the league title or the Champions League in 2026, 27, 28. As much as you need to have an eye on the future, and I do understand that, right now, all of us, as much as Arsenal's resources as makes sense, should be being poured into, let's get this Premier League title, and then we'll think about youth. I know there has to be a balance, but there
does have to be a balance, no doubt about it. But it's just when you've already got 2 very youthful players at the exact same age in the exact same position, it just doesn't make any sense, especially for that sort of fee. When you, like you said, you could be investing that in the sort of here and now. And so it's not one that would make much sense to me, but I'm not running Arsenal Football Club. So if they do it, then they do it. But I'm still at the sort of stage where I'd be very, very surprised if that does indeed happen. And that's it for today, mate, for this week. Thank you for joining me. As always, thank you everyone for watching and for listening. I'll be back in the morning with my regular usual show. We'll be back at some point next week. Who knows? Maybe we'll have a firm transfer to actually talk about.
Maybe you'll have got through to your estate agent.
Maybe she's already messaged, so I'm gonna have to reply to her as soon as I get back. But yeah, maybe Arsenal will decide a striker. Stranger things have happened. Maybe not, but stranger things have happened. Anyway, it's been a pleasure, mate. Thanks for joining me. Thanks everyone, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.